Hey guys, and welcome back to Monka, where stupid shit ensues, but today I finished an anime, and so I kind of wanted to talk about it. Unfortunately, I don't got a shirt for it, because I can't really find a shirt for the series so far. I can find shirts for like everything else, but I can't really find a shirt for this series. But anyways, what anime did I finish? Well, I watched Sword Art Online Alicization. I keep trying to say Alicization, but it's Alicization. I did watch, I'll mention this because there will be a video kind of missing in between that's like, oh, you missed something. Well, I did watch Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online. I don't really feel like it's worth making a video on because of how short it is. It's only really just a 12 episode side story to Sword Art Online that doesn't really even cut into the main story, but it was good. It is a good 12 episodes and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't really feel like it was worth talking about in a video. But Sword Art Online Alicization is absolutely worth talking about in a video because it's a good one and it's long. Now, Sword Art Online Alicization is based on the light novels by Rike Kawahara and done by Aniplex. As far as I know, it's always always got the Aniplex splash for it, so I think it's done by Aniplex. But this is by far the longest run of Sword Art that actually exists, because Alicization is 3 seasons long, which is pretty long, spanning 47 episodes. The first season came out in 2018 and lasted for 24 episodes. The second season, called War of Underworld, came out in 2019. It was 12 episodes, and the final season is just the expansion of War on Underworld, and it's 11 episodes, and that was released in 2020. So it ran over the span of about 2 years and spans 47 episodes and 2 arcs. My long and the short of my opinion is that Sword Art Online Alicization in its whole, all 3 seasons, is probably some of the best that Sword Art has to offer in like the entire like series of Sword Art. Like, this is about as good as it gets, honestly. Like, this is the best of the best for Sword Art, honestly, for all 47 episodes, because it really does fix all the problems of the original 2 seasons of Sword Art. Like, it's good. Like, if you like Sword Art, this is what you gotta watch. Everyone bitches about Sword Art so often, but this like improves on Sword Art in every possible way and is the best that Sword Art gets besides like the original arc. But honestly, this might be better than the original arc in my opinion now. My opinion for all 3 seasons pretty much stays the same. I liked every season of Sword Art Online Alicization. I like the 24 episodes, I like the 12 episodes, I like the last 11 episodes. All of them are good, and really it just fixes the flaws of the original 2 Sword Art seasons, which is they feel just so rushed. And I didn't feel like that was a problem for the first arc because they set it up like that to kind of feel like, okay, we're progressing really fast. But the rest of Sword Art, like the second arc of the original Sword Art and then Sword Art 2, all felt kind of rushed. Sword Art Online Alicization takes its time and does its story over 47 episodes, really feeling like there isn't a lot of filler in it as well, which is really nice. The story, I'll go over it lightly because I really don't want to spoil it because it's a good story, but it expands on the concepts of Sword Art and Sword Art 2, so you do actually initially have to be a fan of Sword Art to actually understand and jump into this one, unfortunately. Otherwise, you'll be lost, even though the introduction kind of loses you at first because it opens up really weird even if you are a fan of Sword Art. It adjusts after the first episode and you kind of get like, oh, okay, that was where they were going with it, but it's kind of jarring at first to like watch right into it and not understand what's going on. But the story is actually really good, and it's really just bolstered throughout the entire seasons. It's split up between 2 arcs. I wouldn't even know the names of the arcs. If I had to split up to 2 arcs, it would be the first 24 would be like the Underworld arc, and the last 23 are the War on Underworld arc. It pretty much is just a shift in tone from like Kirito goes from exploring the underworld to there being a war in the underworld that they're fighting. The story, and like I said, I don't want to spoil it too much, but the story pretty much expands on from Sword Art 2. Some time has progressed from Sword Art Online 2, and now Kirito and everyone's kind of grown up and they're doing whatever, but Kirito is on the side doing an experiment for a new form of like simulation called the STL, which like is a very, very advanced form of simulation that doesn't even require a pair of goggles because it kind of messes with something called a flux light, which is like the human soul, and so it kind of simulates on the human soul, which is really interesting. Pretty much the basis of the story is that Kirito is assaulted and he ends up in the underworld, which is kind of like the virtual world for the STL, and he doesn't know how he ends up there, and really the circumstances of what happened in the underworld are kind of unknown. It's not really know if it's like if you die in the underworld, do you die in real life, and like everyone that Kirito meets is like, are they real people like Sword Art, or are they like NPCs? And so Sword Art Online Alicization for its story is an absolute like new direction for Sword Art, and it's like completely original. Like it has very little in the way of like actual connections to Sword Art, which is what makes it so good, because it feels like just something original. Like, it really is nothing like Sword Art Online or Sword Art Online 2. It's just complete diversion. To where Sword Art Online 2 felt like it was trying to be something like Sword Art Online, Alicization just takes a completely new direction with the story and just tries something completely different. In Sword Art Online and Sword Art Online 2, you have a really heavy focus on the fact that everything's VR and simulated. But in this story, it really focuses on the characters. It just really focuses on the world of Underworld in general. Like, it actually feels like at points, like watching this anime, I completely forgot that it was supposed to be like a focus on like VR and simulation and shit, and felt like I was just watching like an anime about like a medieval world of like characters and shit like striving for something. It really feels like a divorce from Sword Art Online completely, but it does it so well that it's like I can't even complain because it's original. And that's the big thing about Alicization in comparison to the other animes before it, like Sword Art and Sword Art 2, is it really is just original. Where Sword Art 2 felt like it was trying to be Sword Art, Alicization feels like it's just trying to be something completely different, and it benefits for it all the more. So overall, for the story, it's really, really well done, and I really like it. And honestly, through and through, I like the entire story. It's not like Sword Art or Sword Art 2 where I like the first arc and didn't like the second arc. I like the first arc a lot, and honestly, there's not a lot of filler either, even considering that it's 47 episodes long. In the first 24, there's some filler, but it really isn't that bad. But it's still like the first Underworld arc, I guess you could call it, is really good, and it really is just like something new. And that's what I really like. It's like Sword Art felt like it was kind of burning out this VR concept, and Alicization feels like something just fresh and original completely. So the Underworld arc is really good, and there is some filler, but it's still good nonetheless. And the War on Underworld arc is also really, really good. And honestly, it kind of feels weird because a majority of the first arc of Underworld really just focuses on Kirito, and honestly, they focus on new characters heavily. Like, original characters from the first 2 seasons, they really don't focus on that. They just bring in new characters and expand on those, which is kind of cool. Honestly, this series is really cool just because it just feels so original and fresh and just feels like a reboot of Sword Art. And it's all the better for it, to be honest. But it's also worth mentioning lightly with the story that Sword Art Online Alicization is a lot more brutal than the past 2 iterations of Sword Art. Now, Sword Art was already pretty brutal to begin with, to be honest. Like, even the original Sword Art and Sword Art 2, they're both pretty brutal. But Sword Art Online Alicization is like brutal, and it loves to like show like gore and blood, and it is just absolutely, like, it's disgusting, dude. Like, people get their arms chopped off and they're like spewing blood. They get stabbed in the stomach and they're coughing up blood and bleeding everywhere, and there's just like holes getting blasted into people. It is bloody, but it is entertaining as all hell. Like, Alicization is like gruesomely bloody, but it's fucking entertaining as all hell to watch. So that's just another thing in terms of the story. If you don't really like gore in anime or anything, the first 2 seasons of Sword Art, like, they don't really show it that much. You might be squeamish to Alicization because they love to show like the blood and gore, and honestly, I thought it was crazy and awesome, but some people might not like it. It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z to Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Z was pretty fucking bloody, but in Super they really tone it back, so that's kind of like the difference. The first 2 seasons of Sword Art were pretty brutal, but it was more like in terms of like implications. Alicization just shows you all of it, and personally I loved it. But the other 2 points to really expand on are the music and the graphics. The graphics are pretty great, to be honest. Like, it gets an update due to the fact that Alicization comes out 4 years after Sword Art Online 2, so it looks a bit different, but it also looks better in my opinion, and the graphics are still about as flashy as they've ever been in Sword Art, so I can really appreciate that. It's really good looking. There really isn't a lot of reuse of frames, and honestly, just overall in terms of the graphics, it just still looks good. Now, in terms of the music, this soundtrack is very low-key, to be honest, at a lot of points, but it's still good. But really, it has some really good songs. Like, there is one that's just so, like, it's memorable. Honestly, it's like a memorable song. Like, it's fucking great. Like, it's just like such an emotional song, and every emotional moment where it like needs an emotional song, the harp just comes in and just plucks really lightly during the emotional moments, and it is just beautiful. Otherwise, the soundtrack is pretty low key, but whenever that song came on, I was like, oh my god, that's just beautiful. Like, it's just a beautiful melody. But the soundtrack is pretty low-key, to be honest. Like, it carries the moments and it just does what it needs to do. There are a few songs on here, however, that are just like very much standouts that just make you go, damn. The emotional songs in particular are like real standouts in this OST, but the soundtrack is really good. Honestly enjoyed it a lot. Last thing to talk about in terms of sound design is the voice acting. All of the original voice actors from SAO and SAO 2 carry over to Alicization, and they do their part per usual. They're just really good, and there's nothing really to complain about. Like I said, I watched the English dubs, even for the last 2 seasons, which were only dubbed about 5 months ago. I watched the dubs for, and they were good. They did their part, to be honest, and every voice actor that had a dub was fine. There's no real complaints in the voice acting department. The new main characters are also voice acted really well and really bring out the life of the new characters, which I may have skipped out on, but the new characters that they do introduce are really good as well. They do replace some of the old characters with new characters. For the most part, the old characters do come back, but at least for the first season of Alicization, the old characters are replaced with new characters, and they're really well done, and you really come to like them as much as the old characters. So they're really well done, as well as the voice acting, it's really well done. It helps to build these new characters and make you come to like them. But overall, my opinions on Alicization is that this new season, this new, I guess, arc of Sword Art Online is really good and really enjoyable. And at the end of it, they do bait to suggest that there's going to be a final season of Sword Art, so I'm excited to see it because it does leave off on a cliffhanger. But Alicization may very well be the peak of Sword Art Online as a series, to be honest, because it's really, really good, and it may beat out like the first arc of Sword Art Online just because it's just really well done. This may be the peak of Sword Art, and honestly, it's just really, really good. And if you like Sword Art, honestly, you have to watch it because it's just really, really well done. If you watched the previous 2 seasons of Sword Art and you didn't really like them, honestly, you should still watch this because it's completely original, completely new from anything done previously in Sword Art Online, and it was just a hell of a time to watch. I 100% recommend it. Whether you like the original or not, you still should watch it because this is a fantastic anime, and honestly, I'm so glad. Even though it's 47 episodes, it's a really good 47 episodes, and I just enjoyed my time with it, and it is absolutely worth watching. But thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you. Stay chill.